Hey there, welcome to the Dear Creator YouTube channel. My name is Daniela, and I'm your self-investing storyteller. Here in this channel, I am on a self-awareness journey, and I'm inviting you all in. What that means is I'm going deeper into these questions, deeper into my belief systems, deeper into everyday life, and intentionally looking for the good and practicing that through thought and writing and mindfulness. And what I like to show you all or share with you all are a few clips. So content for me is very inspirational. It can be challenging. It can be something that I consume more than I want to. But content is also the content of our character. It's the content that we create in our everyday life. And so I would like for us to approach content in a journalistic way where we are becoming journalists for our own self-awareness journey. We're going deeper. We're having quality questions. We're having skeptical questions about the content that we consume and the content we create on our everyday life. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to share a piece of content from the internet, and we are going to explore how we respond to it, whether we are inspired by the content, whether we are triggered by the content, whether it creates more content for us as thought leaders or creators. We're also going to make sure that we apply it to our own self-awareness journey. So why do we think this way? What are things that come up for us? And so for me, I'm going to be using the content that inspires me, but at home, when you are scrolling and you're going through social media and there's something that stands out to you, you want to comment on it, or you feel something in your body, I want you to sit in those moments and be intentional about the thoughts that you're inviting in, and also listen and hear what it is that your body is trying to share with you as it relates to the content, and see if you can indeed go deeper. So today's content is inspired by a creator named Jason Jackson. So what I'll do is I'm going to play a video. I don't know too much about Jason Jackson. It's just something that was in my algorithm, okay? But it says on his page that he's a motivational speaker. And if you love Jesus, you'll love it here. So I'm liking Jesus, okay? And I think his page, based on this content, is probably a page that the algorithm sent to me intentionally. But here's what I want to say about this before we go into the video. I am learning each and every day that my questions are something that my questions are interesting to me, because my questions are almost ongoing. There's always another question, but I don't feel drained by my questions. I don't feel depleted by my questions most of the time, because I'm having these thoughtful conversations, which I believe are helpful. I'm getting more insight. But of course, as I get more insight, another question comes. And sometimes some questions come and circle around, especially with the relationship with faith. So my entire life, maybe some who are on this channel as well, we have adopted the faith. That faith has come from maybe our upbringing, or maybe an encounter we had, and allowing us to really feel that that is our truth. As I start to engage with content, which is why I'm one of those advocates for content, because sometimes we can live in our own box and we have our own belief systems and we're not exposed to something else. So let's consider someone who grew up to hate other people. They never were exposed to the true or the other side of the story, or the history of it, or why things happen, but they believe only that they should hate another group of people because of the color of their skin. That's a sad reality, right? Because you don't get exposed to any other content meaning that there's other opinions and storylines out there that you just don't know. You just believe that one concept, which is hidden from you. I believe that even though we can engage with content that can be detrimental, we can engage with content that could make us confused, we can engage with content that can actually dismantle our entire core beliefs. But through that process, I would encourage us all to be intentional, critical thinkers as best as we can. And so that's what I want to do here on this channel is I am intentionally trying my best to figure out when someone says, you just got to pulling your boots up by your bootstraps, or you just got to get over it, or you just have to believe, or you just have to have faith. I want us to dig into what exactly does that look like? What does that mean? What is the process? What are some self-assignments or some examples that we can pull from that allow us to actually see if that's a truth or not? And honestly, just try and practice in our everyday life to get closer to whatever reality we want. So, quick story. I had a conversation with someone recently about this idea of good and evil. It's been a conversation that's been coming up often. And the sentiment was, or the statement was said that I don't believe, this is not my statement, this is the person I'm speaking to. Okay. They said, I don't believe that anyone intentionally wants to do evil. Like, there's no one who wants to be bad or do bad. There's just the environment that they're in that's causing them to create these decisions, and they're in these habits that keep going, in these habits over and over again. That was not exact words, but that was the idea that I gathered from it. And I was inspired by it because it allowed me to pause, because there is a belief system that I had that was core, that people who are doing evil, they just want to be evil. They want it, right? Like they just want to be out here doing evil. And I don't say it like that, but I do have this core belief system that we have a choice. But as I was listening to this person, this is a person that I appreciate that's in my life. It allowed me to gain a different layer of perspective, because how is it that some people are able to choose to create better habits and some people aren't able to do so? Some might find some scientific understanding to it. Some may find a spiritual understanding to it. Some may even dig into past lives and say that there's something that's going on that's causing it. But the truth is, in my reality, how do I know? When I'm engaging with content, this is online or offline, just people and their behaviors and how they present themselves, a lot of people have a dominant understanding of what they're saying. And so they come forthcoming with, this is a belief system, this is it, and this is true. And I challenge that every day. And so this is why I'm here on this YouTube channel, to do this with you all and to do this out loud, to see what happens. And honestly, because it's fun to me, fun. It's like a game. It's so fun. It's so exciting. I know I have these deep conversations all the time, and it's almost like another deep conversation, but this is who I want to invite. I want to have these deep conversations. I do want to laugh. I do want to have fun as well. But I want us to see ourselves a lot more clearly without a lot of noise, but also with noise. And what I mean by that is that some of the content that I'm going to be sharing, it's going to seem like noise. And I understand it's going to seem like noise. But one thing that I've accomplished in therapy, which I think, honestly, I just want to announce this. I have one therapy. What I mean by one therapy is I attempted to go to therapy. I put my all into it. I got to some things that I never thought that existed. And at the end, I feel fulfilled. I feel accomplished. And one reason I think this was helpful for me was I gave it my full attention, and I was intentional about who was my therapist. So you have to vet your therapist out. But at the same time, I was giving my all. And because I gave my all, there's nothing else to give. And I was able to really get to the point where I don't need to be dependent on therapy. So at one point, I was going every week. It was a proposal that maybe I should come every other week, because I was able to, something happened, and my therapist was just like, I don't really, think you have to come every week. And so I was a little bit hesitant, because my therapist is like low key somebody who's like very, very cool. And I like her a lot. So I was like, I don't think I want to do that. But then once I did it, I was like, wait, I don't need it. Like, I understand, like I'm feeling these things out for myself. And that is what I think health is. Not that these things stop, not that I stopped having questions, or, life just started to be well, but I now have the tools in order to process these things on my own and to continue on my health journey, being accountable. And that's how I think about, some of the medications that are given to Americans or given to people for their health, is that eventually we want to be able to get off of them and be able to establish these behaviors, or in some cases habits, that we can own, and we are intentional about that process. I just wanted to share this because I feel like I'm sharing almost every video what I'm doing here, how I'm doing it, because I want to communicate effectively. But I feel extremely inspired about today's intro, because hello, I get it. We are just practicing. We are exploring. We are looking for what are we looking for? I don't know yet, but let's watch this video together. And then I have a few questions for you all before we close. Now, as we watch this video together, here's just one simple activity I would like you to engage in. If there are any words, 3 words that come out as you watch this video, write them down. And then at the end, we're going to go in these words and see why we chose them. All right, let's go ahead and watch Jason's video.
I ain't never heard nobody explain this story the way I'm about to explain it to y'all. Now, I'ma just warn you before we get going. This here is some pretty deep water, so don't be surprised if you feel like it's coming for your neck. But if you think you're ready, let's dive in. So in John chapter 5, Jesus is on his way to Jerusalem for a festival. But on his way there, he stopped at this pool called Bethesda. Now, this wasn't no regular swimming pool. This pool is where several disabled people, including the blind, lame, and the paralyzed, would all lie and wait for the water to be stirred so they could be healed. See what I mean? You done already missed something. Notice the quality of people that surrounded this pool. They were all disabled. So in other words, they were only close because they were dealing with the same dysfunction. And while you may be thinking this has nothing to do with you, let me show you why it does. There are 3 different struggles in this story, and you probably relate to all 3. The text tells us that these people are blind, lame, or paralyzed. So let me break this down for you. There is a group of people who are really close, but only because they either blind, meaning they don't have a vision for where they're going, they lame, meaning they haven't been the same since they got hurt, or they paralyzed, meaning in some area of their life they have been living in a state of stagnation without any evidence of progression. See, y'all finna make me cut up, but what's my point here? My point is, this is exactly how some of your friendships are. You're not actually friends with them. You just struggle with the same sin, but you call them family because you see familiar. And just like these disabled people, you've been struggling with it so long, you've now created a community that's content with complacency. Verse 5 says, one who was there had been paralyzed for 38 years. So in other words, time was moving, but he wasn't. So when Jesus saw him lying there, after learning how long he had been in this condition, he asked him a simple question. Do you want to get well? Now I know what you may be thinking. Why would he ask this man a question like that? Like, of course he wants to get well, or does he? See, Jesus asked this question for a reason, and it wasn't just to hear this man's projection. It was also to show you a self-reflection. Here's what I mean. Jesus was speaking to a person who had been in the same place for so long, it seemed as though he had become comfortable in his condition. And although God wants what's best for you, he won't force what's best on you. Now watch how the man responds. He says, "Sir, I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. When I'm trying to get in, someone goes down ahead of me." Now why is that important? Because you got to remember, God is an all-knowing God. So when he asks a question, it's not for him to find the answer. It's for you to discover the problem. And the problem here is, you don't think he did anything wrong because you probably do the same thing yourself. Here's the problem. Jesus asked if he wanted to get well, but heard every reason as to why he hadn't. So he asked a yes or no question, but got an excuse for a response. And instead of accepting his excuse, he submitted a solution. He told him to get up, pick up his mat, and walk. But hold on, something in the water ain't clean. Because didn't we just read that the pool was how they got healed? We did. But here, the Bible is attempting to articulate that God can bless you in a way that nobody around you has ever experienced. But just like this man, it's going to require you to stop associating yourself with people who can't see you hurting and refuse to see you healthy.
Okay, I want to know in the comments, because we're engaging in deep thinking and conversations, what are some conversation starters that will come out of this video? What inspires you or triggers you or challenges you or shifts your perspective as it relates to this video? And then following up on that assignment that I gave us, I'm trying to keep this simple, but my mind is like, give them all the questions, okay? Were there 3 words that stood out to you? As you are consuming the content, you're taking it in, what 3 words were there? Now, I wrote down my 3 words, but then I messed up, okay? Because on my 3rd one, I didn't want to do 3 words anymore. I wanted to do a full question that he brought out. So one word that came to mind for me was disabled. The other one was evidence. And the last one was the question. So I messed up on my own assignment. But if you guys got 3 words, and let me know in the comments what were your 3 words. The last one, I just couldn't help myself. I couldn't help myself. But the question was, do you want to get well? Do you want to get well? Okay. This question to me throughout the video, when I think about this idea of deconstructing, critical thinking, trying to figure out life, I find myself in the position where I want to understand how to make this life work the best way possible, how to get and extract all the great things out of this life. And so my theory is nothing negative or that puts me down or causes me confusion really puts me in that direction. However, if all things work together for the good, perhaps seasons with those characteristics would be helpful. But at the end of the day, whatever my desire is, that's the route or journey I believe that I'm on. So my desire and my route is to get well, or to get answers, or to be satisfied, or to be fulfilled, or to live life abundantly, to figure out those things through avenues of wisdom and understanding. Now, some will say, well, you might not ever get the answers because there's so much to learn. And that could be true. However, there might also be a route where I might not get the answers, but there's still a fulfillment. And that to me comes through an intentional desire to want to get well. And the reason I say this is because sometimes when I'm engaging with content, I engage with content that does get on my nerves, okay? It gets on my nerves because it's almost as if there's always a negative route, or there's no good, or there's no opportunity to see it from a different perspective. And so it's always, for lack of better words, I just use onomatopoeia. Okay, it's just okay. And perhaps some people get a lot of that type of content that doesn't serve them, and for some reason find a way for it to serve them. But in my life and my journey in my house, I believe the better route is to intentionally look to be well, to have that answer that I do want to get well. Because if you don't desire to do well, and that's not your first call of action, then you might end up in a place where you don't want to get well. Now, I do want to consider that there's another side of the story, that some people don't even know how to start to say, I want to get well. And some people desire to get well and they try their best and they don't get well. What do? Are there things that are missing? I cannot say that for each individual person, which is making that a truth. But I would say for myself, and what I'm encouraging anyone else watching this is, we know ourselves. We know our weaknesses. We know our strengths to a certain degree. We know when we're lying to ourselves. And we know that there is, even if it's just a little bit, there's a little space for us to be intentional about the journey. So even if we don't know how to do something, we live in this world right now where we know that there's an option to get closer to it. And if we start getting on that path, we might get where we need to be. So my other my other two words was, I told you already, disabled and evidence. And I pulled out those words because disabled, evidence, disabled. Okay, I'm confusing you guys. Disabled, right? Let's look at the word disabled and exactly what does that mean if we're looking at the definition of disabled. And then we're also going to look at evidence, because evidence is something I think is really important when we are on a journey to become more aware, to be better content creators, to be better thought leaders, to be better thinkers, is that we're looking for evidence to prove a case. And so I have another video coming up about confirmation bias that I've seen online that I really want us to dig into. And if that video is up, it'll be right here, up here in the corner, or in the description box below. But I want us to talk about confirmation bias, but the word evidence stood out to me as well. So let's take a look at the word disabled, and let's look at the word evidence. If you chose your three words, I want you to look at the definition. I have a theory that sometimes we have a understanding of a word and we assume that we know that entire word, but sometimes looking at the definition or even the original words, like when we're reading the Bible, we can see that the Bible in Old Testament is written in Hebrew, and then some of those words are translated differently. And then you look at the root understanding, it changes the way that that line is read. Looking at definitions here in today's culture can be another way for us to really dig in deeper and understanding what these words mean to us. So let's look at the word disabled. I'm going to put disabled on the screen and the definition, and then I'll put evidence on the screen. Disabled means having a condition that makes it harder to do certain everyday activities. This could be due to physical, mental, or sensory issues like trouble moving, seeing, hearing, or thinking clearly. Disabilities can be there from birth or happen later in life. People with disabilities may need extra support to access spaces, activities, or information. On the word disabled itself, what I see in this definition, which I think is a really good call out, is this idea of needing extra support to access spaces, activities, or information. The support part. As I think about my journey navigating here on Earth and all the experiences, Earth experiences, check out the podcast. But as I think about my journey, support is definitely needed. Support is definitely needed because there's so much space to enter confusion. There's so much space to enter happiness. There's so much space to get on the right path. There's so much space to get on the wrong path. And so the support is coming in the form of those who have been through something before and them sharing their stories, which is why I'm an advocate for people being content creators and thought leaders, especially if they have something mindful to add, even if they don't, because I think we learn from everybody's content. We can see it when people are sharing content that it's all written all over them what's going on. It's, if they're going in a direction that's harmful, we can see it. It exposes itself. So us sharing content online, I think people have understanding like you shouldn't do that. You should just be living outside. We should live outside. We should be talking to people. We should explore to people. But the internet is a way for us to connect with people that we might not see on our everyday lives, and to be exposed to conversations that we might not actually hear because we might not be in those spaces, or might not even have the time based off of the demands in our lives. And so all of those things won't be fixed automatically. We won't be in a world where we can just sit and have conversations yet. But this is a way where we can start digging into these conversations and hearing other people's stories, even their perspective, even if it's off or on, to get us closer to connecting. It's my theory, which is why I think there's space for both of them. More space for living out and exploring our world, but there's space for us to be online and be intentional about the content that we're consuming. All right, so let's go to the next word, which is evidence. I'm going to put this on the screen. So evidence refers to information, facts, or objects that help to prove or disprove something. It's used to support a belief, argument, or claim by showing that it's true, reliable, or valid. Evidence can come in various forms, such as documents, witness testimony, data, or physical objects, and is often used in areas like science, law, and everyday decision-making to establish truth or credibility. Okay, we are cooking. We're cooking. Disabled and evidence, okay? Now, what I would do with this type of content is this content definitely inspires me to create more content, something to write about. But I love this idea of looking at the word evidence and disabled, because we can see if there's evidence of us being disabled. Now, disabled, when it comes to what we all know, people are being disabled. They don't have their hearing. They don't have mobility in certain areas. They have these things that actually makes it so they need support. I think this is also evidence of those who might not have those disabilities, to see how all things work together for our good. We can see examples of what it feels like to be disabled, even if we don't consider ourselves physically or mentally disabled. Are there places in our lives that show evidence of that? So I'm just playing around with those right now. I'm just saying, off of responding to this content, that those are two words that I would use and try to create more content, whether that would be poetry or an essay or parts of a book. I would use that. And I would also use it in my everyday life, looking for evidence of when I need support. And every day I need support. There's evidence that I need support. There's also evidence that I can look for to say that I am supported, right? There's evidence that I am supported. there's evidence that I am supported. And the reason I keep saying that 2 times because I'm trying to get my thoughts together, but also because I want you all to figure out if there's evidence of something in your life that you might not be able to see. Ooh, okay. You're not may not able to see or feel it because you might be clouded by other noise or judgments that you have in your head. But perhaps there is evidence of it, and you may not be putting yourself in a position to see it, but you want to. If you want to, practice looking for evidence where you are supported, where you are loved. Think of that thought where you say, I don't have any friends, or everyone hates me, or I can never do this. Look at evidence where you can get good friends if you chose these different routes, or you can do whatever X thing if you tried this, because there's evidence, like we saw with evidence here, is that there are witness testimonies. One thing that I like about the faith journey and anyone content sharing their story is that they're sharing that they were once in this disabled moment, or they were once in this disabled thought, or they were once in this place that they didn't want to be based off of their perspective of life, and they made changes, or life happened to them that pushed them into changes, and something different happened. I think that's one of the most beautiful things about life, is that people have those stories. So there's evidence of whatever it is that you say you cannot do, even if we're talking about a disabled an actual physical disability. And it's not like you can, if you don't have your arm, you won't have your arm growing back unless a miracle happens and you see that happen. But we might see someone get an arm based off of technology. So then that truth becomes a reality. Or maybe someone doesn't use anything artificial, but they learn how to work in this life without that arm to do the other things that they thought they needed an arm for. But when we think about the body, we all want to be able to use all the aspects of our bodies to its full extent and be thankful for it, because we don't need additional support, or it doesn't have to be in a struggle if we decided to use all the elements that we have. And we tap in all the different spaces that we can in order to be whatever it is that we want to be in this life. Okay, so one thing I want to do before we close is I wanted to pull out some comments. So when I go through these activities, I want to share some of the comments that are on the person's reel or their TikTok or their passage. When I look at like Core or Reddit, I want us to look at some of these comments. Now, here's what I've understood about looking at comments. Depending on the page, you might not see any comments. Or depending on the page, you might see comments that just leans towards that creator. So that means everyone that follows them believes in their same belief system, and they egg them on, even if they are saying something controversial to you or just to the left or to the right based off your framework of thinking. Their comments might be everyone who supports them. So if they say, yeah, this person's stupid for doing this, everybody in the comment is confirming that. Oh, you're stupid for doing that. Yeah, they're stupid, and they find more reasons. But sometimes when I find a page that is big and they have a lot of comments, you get diverse comments. And so my journey is looking at some of these comments, not all of them, but to look at some of these comments and just to review them with you of just how I respond or think about the comments from the initial review. So I was able to look at 4 comments that I want to share with you all based on today's video. And I don't know what I want to do with these comments yet. So let me know in the comments if you think there's an activity that I can share with you all as it relates to comments. I was thinking, like, should we rate the comment? Should we say the comment is something that is inspirational? Does the comment, or is there a question that comes from the comment? Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll try to figure out if there's a question that comes from any of the comments that I would have for the person who comments. But we'll see. Right now, I'm just going to share them, and then whatever happens from here happens. Okay, so this comment reads, he didn't need an add-on. He was telling it how he learned it. Y'all at pastor and prophets and ministers need to stop. You ain't no more saved than he is. Let people tell their way, not yours. Dang, that bothered me. And how do you know he didn't say it all in a full clip? I'm not really sure why I chose this comment, because actually I'm now confused. And I'm not sure what the root is. So this is what this is at first when I read this comment, I thought that I was reading this comment, and I thought that the author of the comment was saying that God didn't need to add on, that this person was added into the Bible. But now it seems like maybe they were engaging with somebody else in the comments and they were upset about that. But let's just move on. So this next comment says, look, just went through a friendship breakup officially yesterday, and this is exactly why. We were best friends for a really long time, but I started noticing that it felt uncomfortable over the last 2 years and misaligned. But because I thought they were forever, I never ended. After my season of consecration with God, I was told to slowly and gracefully start making my exit. Finally said my piece yesterday to the oldest of the two. No love lost. I just can't take them where I'm going next. And that's the part we don't talk about enough. One of my thoughts here, or maybe I'll just do this. I'll just start thinking. I'll think in response to these comments. What does it inspire? Does it encourage any stories or thoughts? In that case, I probably will only look at 4. But this one, I do have a question about it, because there's this idea that there are people who we outgrow. There are people who shouldn't be in our lives anymore. And I always think this is so interesting, especially because when I think about the faith relationship, I think there is 2 different lanes. There's a lane for forgiveness alone, where you don't need to engage with the person anymore, but you forgive them in your heart for yourself. And then there's reconciliation, where there's something about you that allows you to continue that relationship. And this idea that we outgrow people, or that we become better, or that they're not on our level, is something I'm working through, because I think I've also adopted that to a certain degree, that there's just certain people I shouldn't be around. And honestly, there's just certain people I cannot be around. Like, I just won't choose to be around. But when I think about the everyday person, and everyone just trying to figure it all out, trying to establish what's right and what's wrong, and trying to navigate through this earth through a lot of different challenges, everyone seemingly can be on the same level, because we believe in the faith, all came from dust, and there's no respect of persons. And one day you could be poor, one day you could be rich, one day you can be happy, one day you can be sad. That can change for any person at any time. And so although it might not seem like someone isn't on our level, the fact that we all are existing in earth and we don't know the absolute answers and we're trying our best makes it like we are all on the same level. Because at the end of the day, in the beginning and the middle of the day, we're all trying to figure it out and do our best. And some who are trying to figure it out and do their best may not look like they put in a lot of effort, but maybe there's some difficulty there. When I think about being in the earth and being in this world, I assume that none of us came in with all of the rules. Some of us started to establish rules, and through that establishment of rules, we feel confident in it. And so we know that to be our absolute truth. But I think it's so interesting that a lot of us navigate this life as if we have the answers. And I wonder if that's because there's some theory that they've been here before. And that's the reason why they navigate with so much wisdom and understanding, while others look like they're just fumbling around and have no idea what they're doing. But I know that was a lot from one comment, but that's what I think, because I'm thinking all the time about life and stuff. Okay, so here's this next one. That's a way of looking at it, they say. I always say the Holy Spirit often reveals different lessons to each person based on what God intends to teach us individually at a particular time. For me, when Jesus asked if he wanted to be healed, he explained that he had no one to help him into the pool. That might seem like a passive or resigned attitude, but it's not necessarily complacency or an excuse. Instead, his response reflects his limited understanding of how healing could happen. He believed his only chance was getting into the pool when the water stirred, which may have made him feel stuck or helpless. However, this situation also highlights a deeper truth. Jesus came to offer healing that did not depend on the circumstances the man had placed his hope in. Ooh, I like this. These are 2 reasons why I like it. 1, that's a way of looking at it. That first line, that is a way of looking at it. leads us to understand that we're all looking at life so differently. We're all looking at content and stories, and we're all getting a different response to it. And I'm so interested in how we are responding. When you respond to something, are you always thinking the worst in a situation? Are you thinking the best in the situation? Are you thinking about how it can inspire you? Are you thinking about how it might challenge you or shift your perspective? Or are you always thinking the worst? That, if anything doesn't come out of this experience with me on YouTube, is where I want us to sit, is shifting something. If it's not in a place that you want it to be, because I'm not in the mood or have the desire to make people do what they don't want to do. Remember, do you want to get well? Like, that is a place where I want us to sit, and probably something I will keep leaning into when I do these videos. Is most of us want to get well is the theory. If you want to get well, what does that look like? When somebody wants to get well, what type of movements or what type of decisions do they start to make that says they want to get well? Now, as I say that, I go back to this understanding that we see in this comment here. She says, or the person says this line here: Jesus asked if he wanted to be healed. He explained that he had no one to help him into the pool. This might seem like a passive or resigned attitude, but it's not necessarily complacency or an excuse. I love this here, because now we heard something in the content. Okay. We heard something in the content and we disagree with it. And we shared a different approach of that understanding. And I think this is something I needed to learn, is because you kind of just heard me say it. Like, I do believe that we have choices. I do believe that we make these choices and they put us in certain places. But even in my own life, there are choices that I try and I try and I try, and it just won't stick. Okay. It's not sticking. Why? Because I need support. I need help. And I have a limited understanding on how it can be done. And is that because I'm not trying my best? Or is it because it's just something in the world just working against me? Is it really just me? I just cannot do it. Is it something from my past that's causing me to be limited? These are the type of questions I want us to dig into and try our best to find answers, because sometimes it's not just choose good and change your behavior, because you might try that, and on the other side, you see someone successfully do something that you have struggled with, and it can be very simple. What's causing that? Does it have something to do with our brains? Does it have something to do with our upbringing? Is there a blockage that we don't even know exists? I'll say this. I know that therapy works, and I know that therapy is helpful. It is a support, because conversation with yourself, as when you go through therapy, it's not like this magic. It's conversations. It's thoughtful conversations. You're getting a lot of questions. It's just like this whole idea that we're going through this self-discovery, and we're becoming journalists for our own discovery journey. If you don't have the therapist, it's just try your best until you can get to the point that you can. The therapy is helpful because through certain questions that I didn't even know that I had an answer to, or I didn't even know existed, I was able to overcome behaviors in my life that I was stuck in, just through conversation, through the engagement of a therapist. And I think therapy is so important, because although we're paying for therapy, and I have my thing about that, okay, although we're paying for therapy after all these things happen to us and now we got to pay someone to support us, we're investing this time, we're investing this money. And so when we make that investment, if we care enough about the money and we don't want to get it wasted, we try to give our all into it. So I think that might be a theme. But investing my time into trying to figure out how to return on the investment, because I was able to start moving things in my life that I could not move for years and years and years, just through conversation, which is why I'm an advocate for therapy. I really think that it takes the intention and the desire. Do you want to get well first? I think that's our first step. And then we start seeing evidence of how we can get supported. Because it is a truth. that this man, and this is something that I thought about too when he was going through it, is that when he says, when we say here that Jesus explained to him that he explained that he had no one to help him into the pool. Yo, I like this part because there's no one to help you into the pool, but there is evidence of people who was able to get into the pool. What I mean by that is, I think my theory is that we all have some type of gift that we can tap into, that we can use to help others. And the beautiful thing about this is that the thing that you're able to help others with is not limited. Hold on, let me get my thought together. The thing that you are designed to help someone with is the thing that someone else is looking for, right? So this guy's like, there's no one to help me. Like, there was no one to help me. We see at the end that Jesus was able to help. But what if we all activated at the body and we all were serious about finding out, what it is that we were designed to help someone else with? Because in that placement, we're designed to help someone, and then someone is designed to help us in something. So here's what's happening when I look in the world. Someone is really, really good at something. Like, they are really, really good at cleaning their house. It's nothing but a chicken wing to them. Okay. I can clean my house. You clean your house too. Like, what you nasty, you dirty little bum. Okay. Because to them, it's nothing but a thing. I would encourage anyone who's really good at something to reframe how they think about how good they are at something when it comes to someone who's not good at it. So maybe that person who's not good at cleaning needs your help, your framework of thinking, the way that you think, to kind of move the needle for them. And maybe there's something that they are good at that you need help with. Maybe you're just so negative thinking about someone, but this person is positive and they give you a framework on how to think in a positive direction, which is one reason why they're able to receive your help and support. And another reason why you guys work together, because you guys have something that someone else needs. That's my theory, is that we all in this world have something that we can help someone with. And if we all had the desire to use that, then we will be healing ourselves. We will be healing one another, because one, we won't be, hoarding it to ourselves. Like, I think I'm the only one who can do this and I'm going to hate everyone. I do believe that people who have gifts and they don't use their gifts to help anyone or for good. They just have it, and they might use it to actually tear people apart, or they might use it to put people down. Someone may have the gift of words, and they might use the way that they so gifted with words to go the opposite direction. So instead of edifying someone, they tear them down, break them down. Now, all things could be used for good. So somebody could get turned all the way down to the ground and built back up by someone else. And that might have been their role. Maybe some people are designed to be evil and to be bad, so that it can make people who don't want to have that world to hate it. I don't know. That's a theory. I'm just putting it out there. But those are the thoughts that came from that comment. And then I think that might be the last one. Actually, there's two more. I'll just read this one. If anything comes up, I'm just going to be here, guys. We're just thinking. And I'm wanting to know in the comments if anything comes up for you as we read these comments. So this one says, what I got from this story is that the man was conditioning his progress because someone else was getting in first. That is what a lot of people do. They think others are taking their blessings because they're going first, when in reality, we're all blessed and we can be healed too. We just have to walk in faith and stop being discouraged by our eyes. That was good. And let's read this last one. As remarkable as your perspective is, inspiring even, but has nothing to do with the story. The man had a physical disability, not an attitudinal one. So your analysis isn't applicable. The story is about how we all miss what the intention of God is, and when he creates systems that should be tools for awakenings. Nobody was supposed to get healed at that pool alone. Nobody in Israel ever decided to go there to get people healed. The pool was to invite people who who were healthy to obtain healings for the sick. Nobody had compassion to stay with these disabled people to the point of meeting their need. The systems are created, but it is never perfect without man's compassion and participation. I don't know. I don't know. Here's what I would say. And this is what I'm reading. You know, when you're online and you're reading comments and I just did a voice because they put caps, so I thought I had to yell. Well, maybe the cap things just started to happen and they went back, so maybe they're not yelling. But even when we're reading and we're hearing people's words are a powerful tool of communication, and sometimes even a lack of words is a powerful tool of communication. And whatever our intention with the words, we can be effective with them. So we want somebody to feel stupid. We want somebody to feel small. We want somebody to feel edified and big. If we want somebody to feel like, because we're authentic in our words, I believe we can do so. And the way that we craft it, the way that we create our words together, we put them together, all of that is so important. So as I'm reading this, I'm not sure, like, I want to know how you all read it. How do you, I know I just read it, but I'm gonna put it on the screen. Take my voice off, read it for yourself. How do you read the words? I think this is important because sometimes when we're reading people's words, especially through text message, it could be misinterpreted, but it also might not be. People, the way our words come across the screen, I think they or a page can be just as effective. But then here's the thing: is some people aren't as good as at communicating or writing, so there might be space for us to assume that people didn't have bad intentions or good intentions, whatever, in writing. But all I can pull out from this one is I like the last line about the systems are created, but it is never perfect without man's compassion and participation. Really, a lot of the systems, there's a lot of talk about systems right now because we are talking about the elections, we're talking about governments and things of that nature. And compassion, participation. Those are two key words just from this statement alone. Is if we all operated in compassion and we all participated. Participation to me is listening, having these conversations, involving ourselves in the places where we feel there's a lack of. So when we are upset about the systems, what are we doing to help fix the systems in our own communities? How we're involving ourselves in the school systems, the ones that we say are so weak. If we all decided to participate in one way or the other and hold each other accountable, would it look different? And it's a very difficult thing to say because we all are coming from different ideologies, perspectives, and some of them have been skewed. That maybe when we all get together, it would be a big mess. But it just takes that initial step to say, do we want to get well? As a people, do we want to get well? If we keep having that question for ourselves, if I keep walking out and preparing to be well and how I communicate with people, and I prepared to be well and how I receive information from people, will it make a difference? So I'm thinking maybe if I put on the framework of the person that hates the most, and I'm just angry at the world, and I somehow can get to that question, do I want to get well? You all in the comments, let me know what would be my next step. And I would love for someone who feels a lot of hate inside of them to come across this video. Not sure because I'm already at 53 minutes, so who knows? A miracle might happen. But I would want to know what happens if you start to have that question. Do I want to get well? And then you respond back, yes, I want to get well. And then you say, well, what does that look like? Can I start finding evidence of getting well? And then go on an exploration of finding the evidence to help support you to get well, even if you feel like you cannot do it. And the reason why I say this and the reason why I have so much passion is just saying something so simple is I come across content, and I'm going to be sharing it with you all, but I come across content and I do have a shift in perspective. I do have inspiration. I am inspired Words can be cheap, but they also can be so expensive. They can have so much weight. They have to be important because we're using words right now to advertise to people. We use words to have an election. We use words to have these back and forths and these debates. And these are the same words that's causing people to go and divide themselves. So words do have a weight and they do have power. So if that's the case, we have to start making sense of that. And even at the end of the day, if I start saying all these words and my agenda is I want to be rich, I'm going to be rich, I'm going to be amazing, and I never get it, right? Will I still benefit from at least attempting to go in that direction with my words versus tearing myself down or tearing anyone else down with my words? I actually see those results a lot faster than I might see what it looks like to speak life into myself or to someone else. It might not hit, but I believe in those deposits way more than I believe in the deficits of us going in the direction of thinking the worth. But that's all that I have for today. I'm so thankful for anyone, and I mean anyone, and I would be so happy if it's just one person. If one person made it to the end of this video, I appreciate you for taking time to hear me go through these thought processes and think out loud. And I would just want you to put in a comment a yellow heart, just so I know that there's at least one person that's making it to the end. I just need one. I don't need many. If many happen to make it to the end, and if you don't want to put a yellow heart, like this video, comment something, subscribe. Let me know that you made it. And until next time, hold on to you as much as you can. Hold on to your health, your well-being, and your mind. Be mindful. Bye.